Another December, another worst commentaries list rolls around. Although I should be doing something creative or interest geared, but the last time I did that, it resulted in a controversy. Still though, it was fun chasing people with definitions floating around them. Like other years, I'll be tackling bad commentaries and judging them on points, delivery, and editing, since there aren't any co-ops this year. As to why it's only 5, I'll say why in a second, because I want to make this clear first. Despite what I say about these videos, I do not hate to have any beef with the people who made them, especially when some of these users' worst offenses was making a stupid video. I'm merely attacking the art and not the artist, and provided these people don't do terrible / shady shit outside of dumb points, then I got no issue with them. And with this being the third attempt at this list, naturally it's going to be the worst of the 3, going by trilogy rules, so let's go all out with said rules by not only having 5 videos instead of 10, but the executions this time around are going to be more lighthearted in comparison. And that is watching Dwebbly say basically for all eternity.
Basically.
Okay, truth is I've been feeling burnout as a commentator for the last little while, and I haven't been as active in the CC when it comes to videos or drama when compared to other years, so I refuse to give you guys a terrible countdown with a bunch of entries I'm not as passionate about, when instead I can make it easier on myself this year, especially after the shit I went through in the storyline and this burnout, and cut to the entries I am passionate about, or have a lot to say. I'm sorry about this, but like I said a moment ago, the last thing I want to give you guys is a mediocre, terrible list. So with all that said, here's the top 5. Enjoy the holidays, and let's begin.
Yes, the third stipulation is basically word for word what Damien.
You know, we're starting off on an interesting note with this list, when one of the first bad videos in the CC this year is at the bottom of the list. I'm not opposed to the idea of commentating on these worst commentary of the year lists. Hell, I expect one on this video given that it's the third installment as well as what I said a moment ago. But if you're going to do it, it's probably a good idea to construct points that aren't as flimsy as sand, i.e. responding to Jonah's claim about Karome and Becca's audio being hard to hear at points due to the background music being too loud by saying that he himself can hear it just fine, which is subjective and doesn't negate the issue with the video as a whole since it's still there at points, even if he himself doesn't have an issue with it. And this unfortunately isn't the only case of this happening on the list as shown with this excerpt during the Flame of Unity bit. There's also his response to Jonah calling Foxwell's video on him the Sonic Forces of Commentaries, where he says it's not a good comparison because a lot of people like Sonic Forces, which anyone who did any research on this topic would tell you that a lot more people didn't like it when compared to those who did, going off critic reviews since it is mixed, and going off to the Steam page, which is also mixed. On top of the fact that Jonah brought up Forces as an analogy because Foxwell's video was disappointing such a letdown for him since he was really excited for it, and one of the issues people had with Forces was that it was a letdown / disappointment for them after all the hype it had. There are other shitty points Mr. A brought up, but let's deal with the big one. The accusations of plagiarism. Or similarities, but we'll get to that. This seemed to be one of the biggest strikes you had against Jonah, Mr. A, even going so far as to make a whole goddamn document about it and linked it in the description. Despite you saying this wouldn't be a comparison between Jonah's list and the other list that came out that year, you not only made that document, but you also had a few instances where you compared them, one of which being the criteria of mine and Jonah's video, and another was during the Foxwell entry. Oh, and there's also the skip card around that point, where you said that what Jonah said was basically what I said about Foxwell's video on Jonah, even though we covered different points in that segment, as Key went over in his video on you. And even if you didn't mean that, going off of this fucking Twitter thread, it's still a dumb point to make, especially when you didn't even show examples of the work Jonah was ripping off, while also ignoring the context for the similar bits being different, like the singing bits of mine and Jonah's videos, where mine was meant to be a transition to the main topic sentence, and Jonah's was clearly meant to be a joke a la the traditional, oh shit, is people watching? Crap. Anyways, part of the reason he's number 5 though is because honestly, outside of his dumb points in a few instances, there's not a lot I can complain about outside of that. So it's bad enough to be on the list, but not bad enough to be much higher. Holy crap, that was a lot of words said. So let's transition to number 4 while I try and work on that for the next few entries. Okay, I promise to try and not make these remaining entries that long, because that was a lot to edit, the keyword being try. But speaking of rushing, let's talk about Jonah's video on Foffel's Minion, because oh boy, that was rushed out the door. And the first sign of that was it being unscripted, and usually Jonah scripts these videos, so the lack of it, nor the lack of script checkers, doesn't exactly paint this commentary as one that was planned out, as I showcased a moment ago. What also doesn't help is some of his points, one of which is so pointless it shouldn't have been there to begin with due to how small such defeating it was, is his claim that this patron's audio had a slight buzzing that even Jonah admits is barely there. Jonah, if you barely heard it, then how the hell is this a problem, let alone a sign that his microphone sucks? Is he audible? Is there an echo or something else in the background while he's recording outside of the buzzing? Sure, Logan could have done more to edit out the buzzing with his software, but when you yourself admit that it's faint, that's probably a sign that this point should have been scrapped, because in the end, it's incredibly minor and you're exaggerating this issue. Another example of his shitty points is when he flat out ignores what the patron in question said, and responds to something he never stated, while also accusing him of agreeing with everything Logan stated, when as you can see here, that is not what the patron stated. Sure, he wants to try out the older games, but he never stated that it was crap and that he agreed with Logan 100%. Just that he wanted to get into the older games. Seriously, compared what I just showcased from the patron to Jonah's crappy boiled down version. This is also ignoring that the cameo should be allowed to go and play the other games instead of Sticker Star if a reviewer they are watching explains why a game is bad without being painted as a blind fanboy of the guy, because one of the points of reviewers is to inform consumers what's good and bad, and then they can decide for themselves after that if they want the game or not. Like the microphone point, this is an exaggeration of something not present and would be spotted if this was checked or given more thought, which I stated earlier, this wasn't. It's actually a major problem with this point here. If Jonah isn't entirely missing the point of what someone said, he exaggerates something to the nth degree and it doesn't work. I could go on with these points, but I think you get the idea. I'm also not a fan of the delivery intent. You already saw him talking down on a Fawful's fan slash the cameo as well as exaggerating a couple of points, but it feels like some of his points were based on emotion and not facts, especially when he said in the beginning he hated this video. So a tower points and delivery as well as other factors that I just stated. This video frankly should have gotten the same fate as Sticker Star. Scrapped for something better. To say that Marcus Yamamoto was the CC's punching bag for some time is about as obvious as Boonslayer and rapping mixing like water and oil. We get a lot of bad commentaries with bad points, delivery and editing, some of the more infamous ones being his responses to Zelf and Nitro, and while a part of me wanted to be cliche and choose his Azov video for this list, there's one I was more passionate slash knew more about, and that would be his response to
Yeah, I'm gonna stop right there. Originally I was gonna talk about his Nintendo response, and then I found the release date after I recorded everything. Fortunately, I found a response that was pretty bad slash just as bad as said Nintendo response, and that's his response on Dulsmic and Blunderly. Also, yes, I'm going to be talking normally for this because that segment went on for long, and we'll just write off as, I don't know, the Mountie popped in from another dimension and locked Damon in the closet for a bit or some shit. I need an avatar, so just throw something up, I don't know, just anything. Anyway, like I said, this commentary is just as bad as the Nintendo response, and here's why. A bunch of his points are composed of either insults with no substance or point on top of it, which could have been cut out, frankly, since you can have insults and a point with it, but Marcus just doesn't hear.
Yeah, I can tell. You're a bonehead.
Points that debunk nothing stated, like him stating to Doll, after pointing out his childish attitude wasn't needed and what he said debunked nothing, that the purpose of him wanting us to imitate DC fans who want nothing but dark and edgy stuff, even though he disagrees with the notion that it has to be that way. Or the bit where he calls Doll a bonehead and reiterates what he said in the Nintendo response by saying Nick is an idiot with science, after Doll points out that the insult made in the Nintendo response didn't debunk what Nick said about the show beating people over the head with the fact that Peter likes science, and also points out the issue with it as a joke, and being a serious counterpoint, instead of making an actual response to what Smick said. He also throws in his own subjective opinion, which debunks nothing said by Doll or Nick, and even accuses Nick of having a preference for DC and not Marvel based on this video.
This guy clearly favors DC over Marvel!
Which is fucking stupid and on par with people claiming that Marvel pays off critics to give high ratings for their films. Even the points he has that aren't guilty of these factors have their own issues, such as him trying to defend his terrible points about the villains being bland in Nick's eyes, being intentional since it's not about Spider-Man by stating they only have 30 minutes and not a movie length to develop said villains, when that gives them less of an excuse to not develop them further slash expand on them, since they have objectively more time to do it, since the season has more time when all the episode lengths are totaled up, in comparison to one film, and they could easily sprinkle in more complexity to them as characters slash antagonists in the episodes if they can't make them the main focus of said episodes. So we have no you arguments, padding, and even his main points that aren't subjective, no user insults, are fucking faulty. Anything else that's wrong with this video? Well, he doesn't pay attention to some of the points presented in the second half of the response to Blunderly. When Blunderly explains why he prefers the rough draft, Marcus's response is, why exactly did you like the rough draft? The revised version is a lot better than what I originally did. He also cut out context for a joke and tries to respond to the joke with a cut out context, which is really stupid since it doesn't make any sense why he did that and is unneeded. His delivery is also shit at points, and like the Nintendo response, he overreacts to something that's minor, like Blunderly censoring a part of the video and Marcus flipping out and leaving the room over something, well, small. Even the editing isn't all that great. Some bits could have been cut, there was a bit of padding, and the Batman bit was almost inaudible at points due to the audio bits being way too low. So yeah, this video isn't all that great. Sorry about the mishap, and enjoy the remaining 2 entries for Damon. Back to Damon, we'll just say that Mountie is right there or whatever. Next entry.
Channel awesome. Love him or hate him, the site, not the channel mind you, certainly got attention this year after years of basically nothing. It's just a pity that it was for the wrong reasons, as the Change the Channel movement showcased with pages upon pages of accusations and stories from multiple ex-members about the terrible experiences with the site, and multiple creators leaving the site itself, including long-time members like Linkara. The spring/summer season was full with a bunch of Change the Channel-like videos before the movement started to fizzle out near the end of the summer, and unfortunately that also meant a lot of material for commentators such as myself, because some of these videos were, to put it simply, crap. And the creme de la crap was Shinobi 03, specifically his Jurassic World response. This has certainly been a long time coming, especially since I will likely scrap the original plan come on him, though I will leave a link to it in the description, but at least I can reuse the points from that one for this. Now just to make this clear, this isn't because I believe Channel Awesome's in the right, far from it, but if you're going to make a video that's 81 minutes long, have little to say throughout most of it, and have terrible delivery/jokes, then I'm sorry, but I'm gonna take that title of Change the Channel hater with pride. If it means calling out this video because this paints a terrible impression of the group as a whole, as well as what a response thus commentary is. Let's start with the pacing. Now like I said a moment ago, this video is 81 minutes long, and it contains a lot of tangents that debunk nothing Doug stated, and even the beginning has problems as it spends 14 minutes giving his backstory, and then his history with the site itself, and that didn't need to be there, or at least it should have been heavily shortened, because that is insanely long, especially for a commentary. Now remember a couple years ago in the CC when people bitched about Ryan's 7-minute intro in his commentary on Nightmare Cogaman? Well, this is twice as long as that, and even less interesting stuff happens. And you know what's better? He also gives a start on the movie itself sometime after the skit, where Doug mentions he's doing clip-based reviews, and that goes on for a while as well. Seriously? As you can tell, this was a major pace breaker, and I had to stop the video multiple times because it legit bored the crap out of me. And I usually enjoy long commentaries, so the fact this one made me stop numerous times should tell you that something's wrong here. So obviously this guy isn't good at pacing or summarizing. What about his points? Well, ignoring the instances of him bringing up the Change the Channel document in a video released in 2015, which serves nothing more than padding such a pulse shot that comes across as him being salty, / showcasing his bias against him hard and nothing else, which isn't a good thing, as well as his tangents that go nowhere, nor do they debunk what Doug says a lot of the time, like his tangents on the theme of the film, or a side tangent about Doug getting help. There are also points about minor stuff, like him complaining about Tamara's portrayal of Claire, and the accusations of him focusing on sex appeal, despite the only thing being off is the bra being more exposed, which is ultimately minor, as well as the hair, since the rest of the outfit is similar to the original design, and the camera angles used to allegedly sexualize Tamara's portrayal of Claire, those being medium and medium close-up shots. They were used for dialogue / picking up on a character's gestures and movements, which is what was being done in the scene Shinobi mentioned. He also tries to argue subjectivity with subjectivity at a couple of points, like when he argues that the first movie has the worst CG, while Doug says it's the fifth, and there's another instance when he argues the chemistry with Owen and Claire, which as said earlier doesn't debunk anything. Oh, and when he makes claims Doug did do something, he doesn't back it up with evidence, like when he claims in the text blurb near the end that people's main complaints that people hated the clip list reviews because of the lack of context, not the lack of comedy, or it being mainly sketches, or the claim at the beginning that even with footage Doug still gets stuff about them wrong, which is stupid because if you're gonna make a claim like that you should back it up with evidence. Hell no, when I looked up stuff for the original commentary, I came across this forum talking about the Hocus Pocus episode, and a lot of their complaints was that it was basically a sketch, which was certainly a lot more evidence than what Shinobi was claiming in that segment. Also, I just noticed this when watching the video again. He later claims that the Channel Awesome situation caused him to lose all his sponsors and a majority of his fans, and even when that video came out, that was a load of bullshit, as shown with his still 1 million subscriber count, and in hindsight, they had sponsors in both the Woody Woodpecker video, and even one as recent as last week, which yeah, as much after this video came out, but the point still stands that this claim isn't true. And even with the Woody Woodpecker video, that came out around the same time as this video did. Seriously, Shinobi, what the hell was this bit? Can I just say that the editing also sucks? I mean, I already kinda talked about this with the poor pacing, but when the pitch of this monster looking thing is almost inaudible at points due to the severe pitch it had.
Oh my god, dumbass critic, just how desperate are you to lie for the sake of a joke?
That's a problem, and is something that should have been fixed. Oh, the lack of evidence also plays a factor in this, since he could have easily edited some evidence on screen, but well, he didn't, and that is also an editing issue, since as shown with your update video I covered recently. Why should I believe what you're claiming when you provide no proof or evidence, in a situation that is evidence readily available / usable even months after it happened?
And before someone argues, oh, you could just look up the evidence yourself then, it's the role of a presenter / responder to present evidence when making a claim, and Shinobi didn't do that here. That is a problem still.
And that's a problem because I don't even like Doug's work. But just because I don't like someone's work doesn't mean I'm going to instantly agree with your position, especially in a video that's problematic and frustrating to watch. Seriously, this video is a pain to sit through, as I mentioned earlier, especially as someone who supported the Change the Channel movement. And when your video is so fucking boring and dry when it comes to good points that I clock out at numerous instances, then yeah, I'm going to put your video on this list because it was boring and it was handled so fucking poorly. I know Shinobi is done with responses and has moved on to other things, and that's perfectly fine. But if there's anything to be learned from this video serves as a good example of how not to do long videos, as well as how not to do a video on a big situation like Change the Channel. And also, yeah, don't harass this guy or the others on the list. I know I've been talking shit about this video, but I'm trashing out, not the artist. Two different things. And if someone wants to argue that it's a response and not a commentary, he's responding to his points in the video, he has an avatar, he plays the clips in their entirety before said response, and he's giving a video reply to it. It's a commentary to an extent, and even if it somehow isn't, it's still a bad response to Doug's work anyways, as I just showcased. Anyways, before we get to number 1, let's go through some honorable mentions, and because someone requested this, I am going to get that manly guy to sing a Snowhalation parody to sing some of the honorable mentions. Dick. Anyways, let's just do the thing. First off is Scarlet and Eaton's coat come. Well better than the carry come, the points were still flawed. And done.
Wait, what? You're not even done the fucking song yet.
Ah, you said I had to do a song parody, you didn't say I had to do the full thing. Loopholes are a bitch. Also, yeah, I fucking rushed the singing, so I'm not putting out a crappy performance in this video, so see ya.
Anyways, let's move on to number 1. The rest of the dishonorable mentions will be in the comments. My number 1 will not be conventional, and it will probably upset some people. But when I look at this person's video on a serious topic and they fuck it up this hard, I don't care if this is conventional or mean, because doing this more of a job of a commentary on this topic is unacceptable. Combined with terrible editing, delivery, and terrible points at abhorrent sources / lack of sources as well. My decision is, Cosmo's first video on Borg is not on this list, because Kanu came out and made a much worse video this year on Alex Jones of all people, aka that guy who once said that the water's being poisoned with chemicals to make the frogs gay. Yeah, based on that, it shouldn't be too hard to debunk someone like him when it comes to him being anti-flu shots and vaccines, but Kanu found a way. He found a way. So, if you'll allow me to open up your mind and show you what's inside this video for a moment, I'll explain why. First major problem is this story segment in the beginning of the video. Now, I'm not opposed to the idea of a storyline segment for commentaries, though I think it should be separate videos, so at least put a card up top / text in the video listing the previous part for the sake of context for new viewers, but I'm not a fan of the story segments here, because it's not only confusing for new viewers who haven't seen the last video since it does a bad job explaining what happened in the previous part / what's going on, but the stuff inside segment is also handled poorly. Why is Dark looking at these videos? Why is Dark in heaven and all hell? Why does Dark even have a light side as an angel if he's an edgy piece of crap as shown in previous commentaries? How would Dark stab his light stuff if there's no swords or guns in the afterlife? Furthermore, why would God or heaven allow this avatar in the afterlife when it's supposed to be a peaceful place? Why is his light side the same avatar as the last video but Dark's avatar in the last video different? Etc. And that's just the intro itself. The delivery of both the intro and the commentary is handled poorly.
Then why can I watch his videos?
'Cause it's torture for you.
Oh, right. Oh, okay.
With the intro coming off as more two regular people talking in a cafe, instead of some guy trapped in his own hell and his light side basically torturing him with shitty videos. Even during the commentary, Dark comes across as bored at points, and that is not a good sign of the commentary as a whole.
You can make the argument that you can look it up, but you shouldn't have to.
Then again, Dark handled his counterpoints to Alex Jones's crazy conspiracies about flu shots and vaccines incredibly poorly, with only 2 sources on hand, neither of which helped debunk any of what Alex was claiming, and it really came out as him being unprepared for a serious topic like this, which is unacceptable especially in this day and age, and especially when we consider that he's done over 30 commentaries up to that point. He should know that he should have good sources to debunk bullshit, he should know how to respond to crazy statements, but he just didn't. And that is unacceptable, especially in a commentary on someone like Alex Jones, who, as I said earlier, can be easily debunked with sources and the like, as shown with V and Hobbs' video response to both him and Kainu. Hell, he thought it was a good idea to respond to the teaser to the video, which was only a partial bit of what the guy would later go on to state, and he even responds to a bit later in the video asking for proof, and then seconds later, it shows up in the video he's responding to. Kainu, Did you watch this video before typing up your script? Because it sounds like you didn't based on these two examples, since if you did, you would know the first case is only part of the full statement later in the video, and the second case is something you know they provide later in the video. Fuck, even the editing in this is shit. I already brought up the intro skit being terrible and could have been done a lot better, but the intro itself is terrible. It's slow, distracting to the eyes due to the use of anime footage and images with and without backgrounds, when the images should be our focus of in the intro. Certain elements like the text for verses on the screen for far too long, and even the intro itself feels like Dark is trying too hard to be edgy based on the song alone, Carnivore, done by Starset. Even if that was the intent, that doesn't make for good entertaining intros on top of factors mentioned above, Kainu. Hell, the dude can't even edit pics correctly, as shown missing Amito here. Seriously, Kainu? If you're gonna have images like that, maybe don't use them for complex things like intros or keyframe jerks, or better yet, have them fill up the screen in case the limbs are missing on the pic, because otherwise, this looks fucking sloppy and unprofessional, since this is something anyone with editing software can do. Seriously. And dear god, the points. Let's tackle one example of these, shall we? Because this particular one is one of the dumbest I've heard in a while, and that is the notorious anecdotal evidence statement made by Dark, where he says that it can't be used to support an argument, only to then use it to support his argument that the flu shot does work.
But I'm sorry to tell you, but anecdotal evidence isn't good to use in a debate, considering we have no proof that what you're saying is true, or that there are no other factors other than the flu shot that got these people sick. Also, my whole class got the flu shot in 8th grade, and it didn't have any negative effects on them. And before you guys get on my case for using anecdotal evidence, I'm using this to show that anecdotal evidence can be used to back up almost any claim.
And if you brought up that point to point out how both of you would be wrong, your wording is fucking shit, and that leads to another editing fail, this time in terms of scripting.
See, I can use anecdotal evidence too. It doesn't make my claim right. This is why you shouldn't use it.
Literally, one script change. One fucking script change could have easily fixed this. Your wording was fucking shit.
Oh, and remember the video done by Vian Hobbs? Yeah, Kainu missed several chances to debunk what Alex stated, such as him comparing Polio having an issue in its first wave of distribution to two major incidents with syphilis in the past, those being in Guatemala and on Tuskegee, despite the former being a case of them not being able to remove/isolate the infected bits of the vaccine, while the latter, whether inadvertently or not, the doctors injected the patients with syphilis, some of which didn't even have it. Major difference. And that's just only a handful of examples Kainu missed that could have been responded to, and he didn't. So not only does he have a minimal amount of sources for a serious video topic like vaccines and flu shots, he misses a good chunk of points that could have been counted. He didn't pay attention to the video he was watching at points, his editing and delivery is shit, and his sources can't even debunk what his target is saying. Yeah, that is fucking unacceptable, and that is why his video is number one. Because when you can't even do the bare minimum as a commentator, listen and respond to the arguments made with evidence/facts and other factors, that is a major problem as a commentary, and a sign that this video should have been further looked at/refined before it ever saw the light of day. Now, like I said before, I don't hate any of the people on the list, and I do wish them the best with their works in 2019. As for me, I'm done here. So thank you all for watching, and I will bid you adieu.